So those of you that follow me regularly on YouTube will know I shoot vlogs, and I shot a vlog recently where I did some CPR training. Now, I only included a small bit of CPR training in the actual vlog because the CPR training took about 20 minutes and it was just too big to put into the vlog itself. So what I've done is I put the CPR training separately as a separate video, this video. So check it out. You might learn something, might give you more confidence like it did for me when I did the small bit of training. Remember that there are classes taking place as well every month. I think it takes place here in Drummy here. If you leave me a comment below, I'll be able to put the details. I get the details of Brendan Waters. He's one of the people that runs the classes as far as I know. Have a look at this video. It might save a life someday, or it might give you more confidence to get involved, or it might, you never know, hopefully you'll never have to use it. Hopefully you will never, ever have to use what you watch on this video. Now remember, this was off the wall. This wasn't scripted. It wasn't planned properly. It was, as in shot properly. It was, Brendan did a great job doing it, but I just rolled in and just took a few shots, whatever. So I hope you get benefit out of it. And remember, if you do like it, make sure to leave a like or a thumbs up below. If you haven't already, maybe subscribe to the channel. Make the video guy, and of course, any comments, questions, or anything like that, leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.
So I'll just take an example. I've seen this person on the ground outside on the street and I'm not sure what's after happening. So the first thing I do is that when you arrive, that you're safe, because you're the most important person there. You're going to save someone's life. So scene safety is very important, okay? So I come along and I see scene safety. So it's safe for me to walk into this situation because I don't see any cables hanging down from the roof. This person could be electrocuted, so if I walk into electrical current, I'm going to be electrocuted as well. So scene safety, so everything is safe around, so it's okay for me to walk into this environment. So I see the person collapsed, and the first thing I'm going to do is check for response, okay? So hello, can you hear me? Hello, okay, no response, okay? So the response I'm looking for here is he going to blink his eyes? Is he going to talk back up to me? Or ask me what am I doing, okay? So he hasn't responded. So the first thing I'm going to see is now I'm going to call for help. So I'm going to shout, help, I need help here, I need help. So I see Tommy here, my colleague, beside me. So I tell Tommy he's going to go ring 999, 112 and get a defibrillator, okay? So and come back to me straight away. So this time now I'm going to check for, is this person breathing? So I'm going to check for 5 seconds and no more than 10 seconds, okay? So I'm going to listen down to see if he's breathing. And as I'm listening for breath, I'm scanning his chest to see if I see chest rising. So there is nothing there. So he's completely out cold, this guy here. So I have to start CPR, okay? So I'm going to expose his chest here so I can see where I place my hands, right in the center of his nipple line here. And I'm going to give my chest compressions, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So I keep going with chest compressions. I'm going to go down 2 inches in depth into the chest, down to the heart chamber, to compress some blood from the heart out into the vital organs that needs blood to survive. So I keep going with this. This is quite strenuous on anyone, so the quicker someone comes with the AED, the better. If you have a second person, they are trained with you as well. You can change the cycle of your chest compressions every 2 minutes. You share this, okay? So Tommy has arrived with the AED. So the first thing I want to do is, because I'm doing this, I keep the AED the same side as myself. So I'm going to give a shock from the side that I'm working on, okay? So there's a few things that you scan the chest for. We'll talk about those after a bit. So I'm going to turn on the AED and listen to the prompts. It's going to tell me what to do, okay?
Plug in trick pad.
Okay, so I have my pads here. So I'm going to plug in the pads into the machine.
Inserted. Training. Press the flat scenario.
So the pads are here. So look at the diagrams here in the pads.
From patient's chest.
So the clothes have been removed from the chest. So I'm going to put the pads on as shown.
From grey plastic case. Attach.
Stand clear everybody. So you stop your chest compressions.
Heart rhythm.
The AED is analysing the heart rhythm of the person collapsed here now.
Stay clear.
Stand clear, I'm clear, you're clear. Stand back everybody.
Heart rhythm.
Stand back everybody.
Advised. Stay clear of patient.
Stand clear, stand back.
Press the flashing orange button now.
Stand back, so I'm clear, you're clear. Stand back everybody. So just before I press the shot button, stand clear everyone, stand clear.
Orange button now.
Shock given. Straight back on the chest.
The ambulance service has been called. It is safe to touch the patient.
So keep going with my chest compressions.
For help with CPR, press the flashing blue button.
So keep going. So in 2 minutes again now the machine is going to analyse the heart rhythm again. And when the machine is analysing the heart rhythm, you stop your CPR and let the machine analyse the heart rhythm and find another shock of a rhythm and hopefully you give a second shock, okay? The machine will do a countdown as I go along. So when it comes to 2 minutes, it'll beep and say analyse the heart rhythm, and then you stop your chest compressions to let the machine analyse the heart rhythm, okay?
1 minute, 30 seconds until analysis will resume.
And once the AED is turned on and you've given the shock, you never turn it off. It always stays in place until the ambulance personnel come along and they either plug the patient into their machine or they take over from
1
you,
minute,
okay?
15 seconds until analysis will resume.
Okay, everyone happy with that? So the things to look out for as well if you're putting on the pads on someone's chest. So if somebody had nipple piercings, you never put the pads on the nipple piercing. If somebody had a pendant, a chain, you never put it on top of the chain. If somebody had perspiration, if they were sweating from the gym or whatever, you dry off the perspiration with a towel. If it was a lady and she had a bra on, it has to be taken off as well. And one of the most important things too, if the person had a pacemaker, you never put the pads on top of the pacemaker. You put the pads on about 1 inch away from the pacemaker. A pacemaker is like a raised box of matches under the skin. So it would be quite prominent to see where the pacemaker is. The pacemaker would normally be in the opposite side to where you put the pads, but sometimes through medical reasons of the hospital, they could be on the same side as yourself, okay, that you're working on. But if you have the pacemaker in place, you never put the pads on top of the pacemaker. If the person was wearing a medicine patch, there could be prescribed medicine from their GP, you remove the medicine patch, wipe away the medicine from under the patch, and when you take the patch off, you close the patch up so you're not exposing it to people that are coming to help you, that they're not going to be sticking to the patch and absorbing the medicine that's prescribed for somebody else. All right? Is if they're breathing, you would have to watch how they are breathing. If they're gasping and abnormal breathing, you still do CPR. But if they're breathing normally, as we would be beside them, and they're responding and talking to you, that's fine, yeah. But if they're unresponsive and just gasping, abnormal breathing, you still do CPR because they're going to have cardiac arrest following the abnormal breathing. Not in this scenario here. Once you check for response, and if they're unresponsive as regards talking back to you, blinking their eyes, and you've scanned for 5 seconds or more than 10 seconds looking for breath, you go ahead, you don't check for a pulse, you just go as you. It's better to give CPR, and if you're unsure should you give it, than not give it at all. So it's better to give it. Absolutely not. If this person is responsive on the ground, once you start CPR, they will know, because it's quite painful having chest compressions done to them. It is quite severe. Yes, yeah, same thing. You would check for the same response as I did there. If the person was in the sea or in water, obviously they're going to be very wet, so you'd have to dry off the chest because the AED won't work properly with a wet chest. Okay, the pads won't stick to the chest properly to analyse the heart rhythm. Okay, yeah. If you're doing the both mouth-to-mouth and the chest compressions, once you administer the first 30 chest compressions, you give your 2 breaths, okay? So the Irish Heart Foundation are promoting hands-only CPR today, so that's how we're just demonstrating hands-only CPR. But if you come to our classes in Drummahere, this happens quite often, once a month thereabout, we do the chest compressions and the mouth-to-mouth as well. So, and we certify people for 2 years, and inside your 2-year certification, you'll be called back for a refresher class every 3 months. We're active for the last roughly 12 years. We have 4 AEDs in the area, and we have nearly 20 people in each area trained up. Each area has a coordinator, so they coordinate the group. The 4 AEDs are located, one at the church in Drummahere, outside the church on the porch, Bannagar Church, Newton Manor Church and out at Kilcoosey, at the old Kilcoosey School, on the gate post there. They're in metal boxes and they're quite well signed, that the stickers outside to say what's inside. At that stage, you're looking for response. So they've collapsed on the ground, so you're checking to see if they're going to talk, blink, talk back to you. So they're not doing that. So you need to call for help. So you call 999, 112, and then you start your chest compressions. 999 and 112 are both emergency numbers for the ambulance service. You get your help first and then you start your chest compressions, because once you start the chest compressions, that's the most important part of CPR. So if you start chest compressions, you remain doing that until the help arrives. But if you're on your own, you need to get the AED, call for help, and then you start your chest compressions, because once they commence, they can't be stopped. If you're by yourself, it's best to get the AED and call 999, 112 and have that with you, and then you start your chest compressions. You have to do all yourself. Yeah. Absolutely, you have to do all yourself. But you get the equipment you need along with making the call before you start the chest compressions. You start the chest compressions then. Now, as well as that, one of the important tips of when you ring the ambulance service on 999 or 112, make sure you keep that number free at all times, because the ambulance service will actually phone you back on that number to see what's happened with the person who's collapsed in the meantime. So you need to keep that phone free at all times, so you wouldn't call somebody up the road to say what's happened. You keep that phone on you and keep that number free, that you can receive a call back from the ambulance service once they've been in touch with them. Each AED has a razor, it has scissors, it has a pair of gloves, it has a towel, it has a high-vis jacket. So all the help that's needed to help this person collapse is all there with the AED. The scissors being for cutting off clothes. The razor is there if it was a gentleman and he had a hairy chest. Obviously the pads won't stick to a hairy chest, so you have to just quick shave off the hair off the chest and apply your pads then. The high-vis jacket is there for you to keep safe, so if you're outside and it's dark, that you can be seen that you're safe at all times as well. And the towel is there then to dry off any excess water that's on the person who's collapsed, as Mick asked there, if the person was submerged in water, or if the person was in a gym and they were perspiring, so you can dry off the chest, okay? Because the pads won't stick to a wet or a hairy chest, okay? You ring for help. Once you've recognised the person is collapsed, you need to call for help, because otherwise you're going to be collapsed as well. So you need to get that call out, 999, 112, and get the AED. So then after that, you're scanning for breath to see if the person is breathing. They're not breathing, so therefore they need CPR. Or as your question was there, if they're breathing, you only give CPR to someone who's breathing abnormally. So if they were gasping, like a big space between their breaths, that is a sign of someone who's in suspected cardiac arrest. So you do your chest compressions, you start your CPR as I showed you there a minute ago. Yeah, you scan the chest for breathing first to see if the person's breathing. So if he's not breathing, you start your chest compressions. So you spend 5 seconds and no more than 10 seconds checking for breath, okay?
What if they are breathing just slightly?
If they're abnormal breathing, you give CPR. So if you're not sure, it's best, because he's not talking back to you, this person, he's not blinking his eyes, he hasn't responded to you after you asking, hello, are you okay?
So if he's breathing properly, he'll tell you, get off me.
He sure will, because it's quite sore. You're pushing on someone's chest, it's like getting kicked by a donkey. So, and the AED is going to monitor for a shockable rhythm, that's a rhythm that's in someone's heart that's shockable. So basically, if you think of your heart, everyone's heart's pumping normal, like a pump in action. If someone is in cardiac arrest, they can have what's called arrhythmia, so the heart can be pumping really, really fast and going and shaking like a bowl of jelly. That's the rhythm that the AED is looking for. So what the AED is going to do is going to shock that crazy electricity in the heart and shock it back to hopefully a normal sinus rhythm that we would be in here today, back to a normal pumping action of the heart. It's the same for a child. As I said earlier, some AEDs have a pediatric switch that you turn the switch for the different shock. It is safe to shock a child with the adult shock. The only difference there would be you put a pad on the chest and on the child's back. It's still 2 inches in depth into, yeah, exactly, yeah. Though it changes for an infant. Slightly less in an infant because their chest is smaller. It doesn't matter. Either pad on the chest and on the back. The idea of putting on the chest and on the back is because a child's chest is smaller than an adult's chest, because the pads must not join. If it was the case you were there and you saw the child collapsing, you would give 5 cycles of CPR before you called for help, because you're hoping you're treating the child for a choking incident rather than a cardiac incident, okay? So hopefully by you just doing your chest compressions, you may dislodge the item by doing your chest compressions. And each time you do your chest compressions on someone who chokes, after you do your chest compressions, you check the airway before you give the breaths to see if you've dislodged the item. If you do, you safely take it out. If not, you give your 2 breaths and back on your chest compressions. But each time you do your chest compressions, you check the airway to see if it dislodged the item, and hopefully you have, and the person becomes responsive again and starts talking to you and says thank you very much.
So there you have it. Thanks to Brendan Waters for doing that, and Tommy, his assistant on the day. Remember, if you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, you might consider subscribing to the channel. I'm Mick, the video guy. I'll leave any bits and pieces, classes, times, contact details, that type of stuff in the description below. So be sure to check it out. And until the next time, mind yourself.